And so that's why I don't mind sharing my voice of the things that I've been through, because I know I'm not the only one. And I'm not the only one. There was people that went through it before me. There's going to be people that's going to go through some things after me. But those that come after me will have me for a testimony, will have me for a blueprint of what it takes in order to get through those same things. And
yes, go 1, 2, 3. I got to be a beast and be like 1, 2, 3. I'm hot, watch me unleash and it go 1, 2, 3. When you know that you the best out, chest out. I'm saying I got now, forget the rest now. 1, 2, 3. I got to be a beast and be like 1, 2, 3. I'm hot, watch me unleash and it go 1, 2, 3. When you know that you the best out, chest out. I'm saying I got now, forget the rest now. I rap with the soul of Frankie Beverly, amazed on these graceful beats, forever heavenly. There'll never be none after me unless we talking let us see, but let us see. Begin on high notes like I'm lettuce. It's the real dreamer and artist formerly known as.
What's going on, fam? This is your boy K Noel coming back with another episode on Relentless Conversations. Yo, man, look, check it. So me and this gentleman, we have been following each other for a good little minute now. And we're finally connected, and I'm feeling good energy from him, man. I'm loving his spirit. So I'm not gonna prolong it. You already know how I do. I don't prolong the stuff. So I just want to go ahead and introduce my guy Ernest. Bro, how's it going, man?
what's up? What up, man? Everything is good. Glad to be here, man. I was missing out. I'm like, dang, man, yeah, everybody except me. Let me get in here.
Yeah, man, we had to get you in the building, bro, man. And I appreciate you taking out the time, man. So how's everything going on your end?
Man, everything is going good, man. Some things is moving. Definitely had since I came back from the conference this year. I know we probably can get into that. I was one of the guys, or one of the people of the. I think it was like 100, a little over 100 people that got baptized at the speakers conference this year. I was one of them, and since then, since I came back, I really, things have really been moving. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful in this season and trying to be prepared for the next, because I've been putting in been sowing the seeds the last couple years, and I knew that. And I'm sorry, I'm jumping way far into the party, into
No, you
the
good, bro. You
interview
good.
already. But I knew coming into this year, and even coming up until the conference, that I kind of needed a restart.
Yeah.
I've been, like I said, I've been sowing the last couple of years in different areas, and just personally and spiritually, I felt like I needed a restart.
Yeah.
And so when I got to the conference this year, I had even forgot all about the fact that people be getting baptized at the conference, but it was already in my spirit. Whether I was going to do it at the church that I'm currently a part of, or whether I was going to do it at the conference, that I was going to get baptized. It was
Yeah.
already, or get rebaptized. So it was
Yeah.
already in my spirit, but I really had forgot all about it until I got there. And Jeremy was talking, and he, presented the opportunity, from the stage. And I'm like, oh, I forgot all about it, but I'm definitely not going to miss this opportunity. And so I did. I signed up. I, went down on the water, came back up, got that restart, and things have just been moving since then, even since I came back home. So I am good, man. I'm good. I'm encouraged. And like I said, just trying to get ready and be prepared for this harvest season that I feel is coming before the end of this year.
Man, you just said something that just triggered me that I want to hit on. But first, I got to ask this question that I ask everybody that's on the platform. Who is Ernest before the man that we see today?
Man, you know what? That's a loaded question a little bit. Not really loaded, but
Yeah.
it might be one of the questions you'd be like, man, shut up. But I've been myself for so long, right? A lot of, if you've known me since I was younger, and the person that I am today, I'm pretty much the same person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've always had a good sense of identity of who I am as a person my whole life. You know what I mean? So introvert, even though of course on these platforms and podcasts we be talking like crazy, but really, and I'm an introvert, um, uh, Christian, Family man, definitely big on family. I always talk about that's part of the reason why I love community, because my grandmother was the baby of 12, and then she had 10. My mom was one of the 10, and then my mom had 9, and so I've always been around big family, and so family and community is really big to me. Whether it's the speakers community, my regular family, podcast community, just love connecting with like-minded people. And man, just I always had a determination and a heart for people. Still have a heart for people and mentorship, but that's always been who I am. Even from a little kid. So the Ernest you see now is a just an older version of, and you can see all the gray, but just an older version of who I've always been. Definitely had some trials and um, trials and triumphs that have molded me more. But in the sense of just the person that I am, I pretty much always been the same person. So,
Yeah. Yeah, man, I definitely hear that, man. And now I want to double back to something because you said you're preparing for a season.
mhm,
And I love that, and I say it triggered me because in therapy, that was something me and my therapist had been talking about. And I was telling her I feel that a new season is coming for me. And she
mhm.
even agreed, that now is the time to prepare for what's to come. So
Yep.
I just want to ask you, what does that look like for you?
Man, you know what? So I started the podcast. I started my podcast, The Deal to Heal, with James podcast. Even that within itself, because that wasn't necessarily planned when it first came. So I go back. I mentioned that I'm a father and father of 5. Right, my only biological child is my daughter. I have 4 stepsons, but I was married and ended up going through a divorce. When I went through the divorce, I kind of went through a season of trying to see, okay, who am I, right? And one of the things that I realized in the relationship era of my life is that every woman I've ever dated has been a fatherless daughter. And so making that connection and realizing, okay, for whatever reason, I'm connected to fatherless daughters. Either they're attracted to me or I'm attracted to them, but we keep connecting. And so I started a page on Instagram called Friends to Fatherless Daughters, just as a way to kind of give my advice and my opinion to fatherless daughters, since I was so connected to this community. And from then, I was asked to be on a podcast. And after that, I was asked to be on several podcasts. And so I met one of the podcast hosts in person when I went to Texas, and I called him like, "Hey, I'm being in the city. Let's meet for lunch." And we did. And in the midst of our conversation, he was like, "I think you should have your own podcast." And so fast forward a little bit, like I said, now 150 episodes in, I think, of the podcast. But even that journey has been study working, putting the time in and putting the work into the podcast, and also stepping out, like I said, outside of the 4 walls of the church, and now to step out to be a speaker and going to schools to speak into the actual schools and speak to the students. That's all been a sowing season, right? So even from the podcast, I haven't got paid. I haven't made any money from the podcast, but I'm already 3 years in of producing, right? And then now into the space of going to the schools and creating workshops and programs, to benefit the students, to be after school programs and things of that nature. Those things has been, slowly but surely, like putting that work in. But since, like I said, since I came back from the conference, and definitely having that, being rebaptized and having that restart personally and spiritually, I can clearly see how things are really starting to move now. With all the years of sowing, it's coming to the reap now. And so it's like, okay, now I can see it. I can see the leaves coming up, right? I can see the corn stalks coming up and the leaves coming out. So it's only a matter of time before it's going to be harvest time. So I'm preparing for that harvest, which I think is going to be really big. I think it's going to be really big, and so I'm just trying to be ready for it.
Man, and I love what you said about that, about, everything is coming, everything is growing now. And one thing, like I know, one thing about sowing those seeds, it takes patience.
Hmm.
And the problem is nowadays, a lot of people don't have patience.
Yeah.
We want to see things happen overnight. We don't want to have that waiting process. We don't want to have that growing process. And I think about even this, and I often tell people this: just because you see a person in one place, don't look at where they are now and think you don't want to sow that seed. And what I mean by seed is those words. Speak those words of life into them. Just because with your physical eyes you feel like it's not going to do any good. And
Hmm.
that's the worst mistake we can make, man. I think about when I was younger. I used to go. I used to try to go see my aunt and uncle. Go to their house like every other summer or something like that. And I used to go with my uncle to the gym and stuff. And one thing about my uncle, you can always get a good story out of him. And it was those lessons that he was sowing even back then in the trials that I went through the gangs and everything else. It looked it pointless to sow those seeds, but those seeds that he sowed, when I finally changed my life, that's when those seeds grew.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get it twisted, whether it's sowing seeds in our business, whether it's sowing seeds into people. We feel like it's supposed to happen overnight. You talked about your podcast. We think that our podcast is gonna grow overnight, and we're gonna hit millions, impact people all across the world. And some people, it may happen like that. But
Hmm.
there's certain people that God allows where I need to slow cook this thing, because there's some things that I need to get out of you. There's some things I need to build up in you. There's some wisdom that you need to gain. So it's going to be a slow process. And can you trust the process? Can you stick it through? Can you be relentless through everything that you're going to face, through all of the trials that you're going to go through? Can you still be relentless with those seeds that you sowed?
Yeah, and I think the biggest part of it is a lot of us don't understand the rules of sewing,
Yeah,
right? And so you said, we're watching people and watching things and like, okay, is it really worth it? Because from the physical eye, when you look at sewing, right, or when you look at planting, being planted and being buried is the same process,
yeah,
right? It's the same process, right? Is you dig a hole, you put a seed in there, or you put a body or whatever you put it in there, and then you cover it with dirt, and they're both in darkness, right? So from the eye, it's like they both in the same hole, they
yeah,
both in the same pit. But the reality of it is, when you're planted to grow.
yeah,
But when you're buried because you're dead. You know what I mean? So there is no growth. But when you're being planted, that means you're in a dark space. You're in a place where no one else can see the work that's being done. But there is movement. There is growth. There is some things that is happening that no one else can see, because all we can see is the dirt on the top.
yeah,
But it's going to take a season that it has to go. We all have to go through, and whatever you're working on has to go through before you see that little seedling start poke through the ground, and you start to see, oh, there is something there. There is something that's alive in this spot that looked like it was so dead. That looked like it was nothing but dirt and darkness on top of it. But no, there is some life there. But it takes a time. It takes a sowing season of being in the dark and continually to do the work that you've been sent to do before it pops up. And so I was talking about the conference this year. One of the things that ET talked about at the conference this year was being on the assignment, right? And the
yeah,
assignment is the things that you're doing in the dark that nobody else sees, right? So right when I started my podcast, nobody saw that. You know what I mean? When I'm writing and writing books and things, and I'm sitting in the room writing, nobody sees that. The only thing they see is the end goal or the finished product, but they don't see the sewing. They don't see the work that goes into it. They don't see the lights and the cameras that you got to set up when there
yeah,
ain't nobody but you and you ain't got no editor. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? They
yeah,
don't see all that when you reaching out to people like, would you be on my podcast? Before people start hitting you up because they want to be on the podcast. But that's all of a season that you have to go through with putting the work in the dark that nobody else is going to see. but you got to be diligent in knowing that there's going to come a time when all of these seeds that I'm sowing are going to begin to grow and the harvest is going to come and I'm going to reap the benefits of it. But you got to be diligent in the work that you're doing. And you got to be diligent for the mission that you're on, that the assignment that you've been called to do. Because if you're just doing things for the popularity, if you're doing it for the cameras, or you're doing it for the likes, it's only a matter of time for that's going to wear off, right?
Facts.
Especially when you don't get it in the beginning, right? So you're doing it for likes and nobody like it. Sooner or later, you're going to be like, you know what? It ain't worth it. But if you're doing it because you have purpose, you're doing it because you're on a mission that you feel that you've been divinely set on, and you are determined to do the work that you've been set to do, then it don't matter whether the likes come, it don't matter what people like it don't matter how it's being received in the moment, because in the long run there's a work that you are sent here to do and you're going to reap the harvest of it. And like I said, I think a lot of us miss the sowing, like what that really looks like to sow, right? Knowing that even though I don't see anything, I don't see any movement, I don't see the things that I'm working for. I know I'm working for, but I don't see the evidence that it's working. But knowing that in its due time, it's going to come to pass, right? So one of the things, and I'm gonna stop because I'll be on a tangent. But
Now you
one of
keep going, bro.
the things in the midst of the last couple of years, with the things and the transitions that I've been going through and looking for my own purpose. There was a quote that God gave me, and the quote says, "Pain births purpose, purpose births progress, and progress is the evidence that God is at work." And so sometimes it's our own pain that we're going through that we have to learn from, that gives us the purpose that we go to move forward, right? So I talked about going through my divorce and then realizing that, I have a connection with fatherless daughters, and
Yeah.
then starting that page for fatherless daughters. That came out of my pain, right? That came
Yeah.
out of me, going through a divorce, which I didn't want to necessarily have to go through. But going through that and then finding my heart and purpose for, the fatherless daughters that I was coming in contact with, which led me to, being on the Des on Purpose podcast, which led me to meeting the host in person and having a lunch with him, which led me to him saying that I should have a podcast, which led me to 150 something episodes later, which led me to here where I'm at now. But it's all came from the pain in the beginning, but that pain birthed purpose. And as I began to do the purpose, like I said, I started a page on Instagram called Friends to Fatherless Daughters, just to share my heart. I didn't have no mission plan. I didn't have no business plan or nothing from it. It
Yeah.
was like, look, I'm just going to share my heart. But because I was sharing my heart and because God was in the midst of it, the purpose, since God was in the midst of the purpose, now I'm seeing all these things that are coming forward, all the progress and all the things that is moving. Is like, oh, that's how I know that God is in it, because the evidence is starting to show now. But that's
Yeah.
all came from, again, we go back to sowing and reaping. There was some sowing in pain,
Yeah.
that this all started with. But even out of that pain, there's some healing that comes, there's some deliverance that comes. Then we begin to grow, and then that harvest starts to come forth. So I'm just preparing for this harvest season because I know it's coming.
Man, and I love all of that, and just sticking to that dark place. I want to speak to the people about this because the dark place, what will it reveal about you? And just talking about my own personal experiences, I went through some stuff that began last year, and I'm big on being relentless. I always say I'm the relentless motivator. Be relentless. Be this. But in that dark place, what will your dark place reveal about you? Are you really about this, or is this just something you think you want to do? And it's in that dark place that we have to stick it out. It's that dark place that we have to push through it, because we have the dirt on top of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that dark place, and it feels uncomfortable. Because it's like you're fighting, and it's like, okay, wait, get me out of here, because what is going on right here? And even thinking about that, I think I love, and I probably don't mention this a lot of times in this season, so y'all forgive me. But Jacob, when he was fighting, when he was wrestling with God, He was wrestling and not realizing he was wrestling for his new identity. And a lot of us in that dark place, what we're doing, we're being molded and reshaped. And sometimes it don't feel comfortable. And what we don't realize we're doing, we're wrestling for our new identity. And what will happen is either you're going to surrender to God or you're going to quit. And when you surrender to God, it's when he blesses you. And in the form of blessing you, he blesses you with that new identity of who he's revealing another part of you. He's revealing another side of you. He's revealing new things that are in you. Now it becomes the new creation that you're supposed to be, because you've been on the potter's wheel and he's been remolding and reshaping you for a time such as this. But what are you going to do in that dark place? Are you going to fold right here, or are you going to keep going? So, man,
Yeah.
and you hit me with that, because I love that, because we get in those dark seasons, we get in those hard places, and I tell people now, I am that voice in that dark place that's telling you to keep going, to telling you to keep pushing, to telling you to be relentless. Because I know firsthand it's not easy. Will you want to quit? Absolutely. Will you cry sometimes? Absolutely. But nevertheless, you got to keep pushing. You got to have that relentless mindset, and you have to be relentless.
Yeah, man. So, man, when you mentioned about the dark place, right? And this is something I talk about too. A couple years ago, I was in the darkest place I've ever been in my life. You
Yeah.
know, emotionally, spiritually, just really going through it, because at that time, I would say I was living a D life at that time. I was going through a divorce. I was in that. I was already somewhat depressed. Then my mother-in-law at the time died, who I was really close to. And
Yeah.
then not long after that, my own mom died. And so just being in that place at that time, I felt definitely hopeless, to the point that I was having suicidal ideations, as far as like, man, things would be better if I wasn't here.
Yeah.
Like who would be better, who would benefit, if I wasn't here, being a burden even to my family, because you start to feel like a burden, and just going through that whole thing, not knowing that, like you said, as I'm going through this and fighting literally for my life, right? Fighting for the spirit just to stay alive, just to hang in there, that I'm also battling for this new version of me that's going to come out of this, right? And so even as I've made it out of that space, I didn't go to counseling, but I went to bereavement support, which is a form of counseling. And I'm very big on counseling and therapy, supported 100%, as well as the church, right? So you got Jesus and counseling, they go together, right? That they're not in competition with one another. But going through that space of bereavement and growing so much from that space, that even if after I finished my tour there, I stayed there and became a volunteer, right? And I think I volunteered for like a year as a volunteer with that organization. And then I started my own nonprofit organization called Ann Christine Charities, which was named after my mom, Ann, and my mother-in-law, Christine. And what I did was to bring bereavement support to the community, right? And that's what I was doing. But that was birthed out of, like I said, the darkest place that I've ever been in my life. Going through all those things at the same time, and then the death of my mother-in-law, and of course the death of my own mom. That's a heavy burden. If you're not prepared for it, and I think none of us is never prepared for it. However, if we are not prayed up, if we're not stayed up, if we're not connected with loved ones and people that have our back to hold us up when we're at our lowest, when we can't stand on our own, sometimes we fall victim uh, to those circumstances. But if we're able to remain strong, we're able to remain relentless and hang in there and fight through it, once we get onto the other side, then we'll be able to no longer be a victim, but now we're a victor over our circumstances. And I always say, once we get to the point where we have accomplished and overcame our own circumstances, then it becomes our duty, our job, our responsibility to go back and help those that are still in those spaces. So again, I started doing the bereavement work, and I still talk about it now. I'm even more vocal about it now, of going through the depression and going through the um, um, dealing with the death of my mom and suicidal ideations now, especially as a man and as a black man, because it's subjects that we don't always talk about, right? It's subjects that we hold and we hide from other people, but now I'm even more vocal about it because I know we're dealing with it. And sometimes it just takes someone to stand up first and be like, hey, this is who I am. I'm the voice for this generation. I'm the voice for this situation. And it's okay, and by me opening up and being vulnerable in my deepest parts, in my moments, then it makes it okay for those of us or those men or people who are going through the similar things to be able to say, look, hey, I'm going through the same thing, but I just was afraid to say it. I was afraid to admit it. But now that you've given a voice to it, and now that you've opened up about it, now it opens up the door for me to be able to say, and admit that I'm going through the same thing. I'm going through, a divorce that's I'm hurting from. Because a lot of times, especially with divorce, people don't think men hurt, when our family breaks up. People don't think that men's hurt when we're separated, from our family, separated from our children in some cases. But we do hurt. We do cry in the dark. We do cry sometimes on the shoulders of those loved ones who are there for us, right? But oftentimes that's part of the things that people don't see, and that's part of the spaces that we hide from as men. But if it takes me to be vulnerable, if it takes me to open up about my experiences of going through a divorce, of going through depression, of dealing with the death of loved ones, and feeling like, I didn't want to be here anymore, and dealing with suicidal ideations, if it takes me to go through all of that to overcome it, and then to share my story to be life to someone else, then I stand up for it. I'm here for it. And so, yeah, I'm just glad to be, in a position that to be trusted, right? And again, I'm not gonna go on a tangent, but but there is a part of pain that we have to be trusted with, right? A lot of times we think about, why is me, woe is me, but sometimes it's not about you, right? So if we look at Job, God trusted Job with his pain
Yeah.
before he ever went through it. Imagine this. Imagine this. You doing your thing, you living good, you all up on your high horse, everything going well, and the devil comes to God and say, I'm looking for somebody to attack. And God says, have you considered my man Job? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's one thing to be in the room and be like, hey, I'm a bricklayer. Hey, I'm looking for a bricklayer. You know what I'm saying? And they'd be like, hey, I know this guy named Ernest, that, he's a decent bricklayer. Maybe you could check him out. Okay, cool. But can you imagine that the enemy of all men has come to God, the creator of all men, and said, I'm looking for one of your creations that I want to attack, that I want to attack his home, his health, his job. I want to attack all of that. And God said, have you considered my man Job? Because God was confident that Job could handle the pain, he could handle the pressure, he could handle the hurt that he had to go through to turn around and be one of the fathers of the faith that millions, not millions, but hundreds of years later, we're still talking about his testimony today. That when we're going through something, sometimes we have to change and say, instead of saying, woe is me and why is me, just be like, you know what, God, thank you. Thank you for considering me. Thank you for volunteering me to go through this, because if I'm going through it, then I know that you have a reason to it. You have a reason for it. And not only do you have a reason for it, again, you won't put more on me than I can bear. So if you say, hey, I'm going to put Ernest through this divorce, I'm going to put Ernest through this depression, I'm going to put Ernest through this suicidal ideation, I'm going to put Ernest through all the things that I have been through in my life in order for me to get to this point now where I can say, hey, you can make it through it. Somebody, give my testimony to others that they can make it through it, that they can be here. Then I can say, you know what? Thank you, God, for considering me.
Man, you mentioned Job, and what hit my spirit was this. And I've been in this mode for the past couple of days about identity crisis. And when I think about Job just now, as you was talking, one thing about Job, he remained to trust the identity of God. He didn't lose his trust in the identity of God. Did it get hard for him? Yeah. Did we have to? I'm sure he grieved, but it's still, yet it's still, though you slay me, yes, I'll still trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, especially for us as believers, through the tests and trials that we go through, we forget to remain trusting in the identity of God. Because he said he'll never leave us nor forsake us. He said, even in Sheol, I'm still there with you. So even though you're going through hell right now, you still have to remember that he's still there with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing that we have to remember. And I even love what you said as far as this being the voice, as far as men, because I think about it, man. Shout out to Coach Crump and Chizzy and the Boy Man King team. If it wasn't being a part of working for Boy Man King, I wouldn't have understood that I wasn't the only one going through certain stuff that I was going through. Mm-hmm. That I had those certain struggles that other men was having too. And I think sometimes we allow ourselves to feel like that we're isolated, that we're the only ones going through this. And you have to remember that you are not the only one going through this. There are a lot of other people, whether we realize it or not, that are going through it. And it is easy to feel like it's just you.
Yeah.
And I get it, and I be understanding to that. So, man, I love what you're saying, man. You're speaking some heat, man.
Yeah. And I want to just jump in, and I'm just gonna apologize, right? I'm gonna apologize now. I'm a speaker, so sometimes when it comes, it just got to get out, right?
Man, you ain't gotta apologize here.
What you mentioned about that we're not the only ones, right? And so even the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. And so when we take that in consideration, that there's nothing new under the sun, even though we may be under a cloud right now, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's still, if you know about the earth and the sun, if you ever been on an airplane and you take off in the airplane and it could be raining, but then they go through those clouds, and above those clouds, the sun is still shining, right? Well, that's how we are in our life. There's nothing new under the sun. So even though the sun is shining, but we can't see it because we're covered with this dark cloud, whether it be the dark cloud of divorce or depression or sickness or whatever it is that we're dealing with, we can't see the sun. But just knowing that the sun, the S-O-N is always there, but the sun, the S-U-N is always there too. You know what I mean? And so no matter what we're going through, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new that the sun hasn't dealt with, that the sun hasn't already made amends for, that the son hasn't already shed his blood, that the son hasn't already healed us from. We just got to go through it in order to get back to the sun, S-O-N. I mean, the S-U-N, get back to where we can see the sun, but there's nothing new under the sun. And so that's why I don't mind sharing my voice of the things that I've been through, because I know I'm not the only one. And I'm not the only one. There was people that went through it before me. There's going to be people that's going to go through some things after me. But those that come after me will have me for a testimony, will have me for a blueprint of what it takes in order to get through those same things. And so sometimes, again, we just have to say, God, thank you for choosing me. I wouldn't have chose it. That's not I wouldn't have chose it, but thank you for choosing me. You know what I mean? Yeah. To be the one to be the testimony.
Absolutely, man. We're gonna make a quick transition now. So I'm not sure if you've seen it, but I have this segment called "Let's Talk About It."
Yeah.
So I picked one of your favorite speakers, and I'm gonna play this clip, and then we're gonna break it down and let's talk about it.
No doubt.
All right, let's go.
And so when I speak to you, I speak from the pain of taking 12 years to get a 4-year degree. I speak to you as a failure who had to get back up every single doggone time and say, brush it off and keep going. And so it is not the message alone. It's not the words alone that resonate with you. It's that I am you. I've been through what you've been through, and I got up and I kept going. And so listen to me very closely. You're going to get cut. All that stuff you wrote down, you're going to go through some pressure. So if you ain't ready for that, close that up and say, I just don't want to have no dream. I don't want no dreams, no goals, no life. I don't want nothing in life.
Man, let's go. Let's go.
I love it. I love it.
So I'm gonna let you hit it first, man, and just break down what did that clip speak to you.
Man, so in my life, I earlier I talked about the fact that I'm working on a hardcover book, right? And so the name of it, I can give you the name of it. The name of it is called Get Off the Floor, right? Because in my life, I found myself on the floor so many times, literally starting over, right? And I go back to the earliest parts of my childhood and remembering about the first floors that I actually slept on, which was a good experience because it was, when my parents bought their first home and we moved in and we didn't have beds and stuff yet because they had just bought the house. So we were sleeping on the floor. But then through my life, I found myself over and over again, literally laying on floors and having to start over. Again, I mentioned about my divorce, right? Going through a divorce. I've been divorced twice, right? So after both divorces, walking away and having to start over and finding myself literally back on the floor. And so that's part of my story, as well as, my when I go to speak into the schools, my thing is from failure to phenomenal, because I was a failing student at one time, right? But I took that failure and went through my process and changed that around to become an honor roll student several times over, to get to high school, graduate from high school in 3 years instead of 4 years, then even going on from high school to college to get a college degree. But I was a failure too. So I know what it takes. I know what it is to be a failure and then turn that around and become phenomenal. I know what it is to fall on your face and find yourself on the floor again and again and again, but to get back each time. Right. And so when we speak of it, and I love what ET said, because when you speak, I'm not just telling you words. I'm not just here to motivate you, trying to give you some motivational speech, but I'm talking about my life because of the things that I've went through, the things that I've lived through. So I'm not just giving you a hypothetical story, right? I'm giving you actual facts that, yes, hard times is going to come. Yes, you're going to find yourself on the floor. You're going to fall down multiple times, but you got to get up after each one. And then even in your failure, even the times that you do fall because of something that you did, because of something that you said or didn't do, right? And you find yourself as a failure, you still can get up from those spaces and devise a plan to help yourself to begin to build your life back and go from being a failure to being phenomenal once again, which is my story. Being a failing student, again, becoming honor roll student of the month, all of those things, right? But that was a process that I had to go through in order to get to those things. And so when I'm able to go talk to students, right, even talking about choices and decisions, right, I was faced with some of the same decisions that everyone else was faced with, and again, I'm not going to go on a tangent, but going into some spaces where people will be like, I can't relate to you because you haven't been where I've been. But there's a core commonality with everything, and that's a choice. So yes, I was I was given the same choices that you may have made, but I just decided to go a different way. And so since you made the wrong choice, and those choices that you may have left you in some spaces that you don't want to be in, now when I come to speak with you, you say, well, you don't relate to me. Oh, I do relate to you because I was faced with the same choice. But now I want to teach you how to make not only the right decisions and the right choices, so that those are choices that you make, you don't keep ended up going the wrong way. You can end up going the right way. So all those life experience and things that we live through, things we've been through, again, being given the opportunity given opportunity to live through some of these painful experiences, that now when we stand up on those stages and talk to those students or those people in front of these different organizations, we can speak from a clarity. We can speak from life experience and say, yes, I do know exactly what you're going through. And I'm here to tell you that you can make it through it. I'm here to show you how you can make it through it, even how you can even begin to devise a plan to get through it, knowing that I'm just not giving you a lot of fluff, but I'm coming from my heart because it's my story too. It's part of what I've lived through too. It's part of who I am in my core. So when I speak to it, I can speak to it from a truth space. I can speak to it from a space of experience, knowing that the words that I say have power because they have this experience behind it to back it up. So yeah, that's what I got out of that.
Man, I'm gonna say this, and I want to talk to the people because for some reason today I feel like I need to talk to somebody today,
Mhm.
and I just want to tell you that's listening, that's watching, that the tests and the trials that you in right now, they're not for nothing.
Mhm.
And you're gonna come in contact with somebody later on down the road who's gonna need you. And what God is trying to show you right now in this season is that you're strong enough to make it through this. Why? Not only because you're strong as a person, but you have God's strength on top of your strength. And I want you to realize that you can make it through this. You will make it through this. You will press through this, and you will make it to the other side. And that there's somebody that needs you because you're going to have to be a strength for them. You may be the only God that they see at that moment right then and there, but they need you. So what I need you to do is don't quit right here. Don't give up right here. Yes, I know it's hard. Yes, I know you want to cry right now. Yes, I know you feel like every part of your being, even stuff that's not even related to what you're going through, makes you want to feel like you want to quit, makes you feel like you want to give up right now. But I want to encourage you right now to not quit. Just like the apostles was in that prison, and the prison started shaking, the doors fell off. I'm speaking to you right now in your dark place right now because everything is shaking right now. It seems like everything is shattering in your life right now. It seems like no matter where you go, it seems like something is falling apart. But don't give up. It's all a part of your story right now. It's all a part of your testimony. You heard Ernest talk about the suicide. You heard him talk about the depression. I can relate to that. I've been through the depression. I've been through the suicide, and I survived through it. You survived for a reason. Because you're watching this, you survived. And because you survived everything that's been behind you, you can survive everything that's ahead of you. What I need you to do right now, I need you to look back at everything that God has brought you through. And I need you to remember, I need you to acknowledge that you survived. No matter, even people on the outside, people on the sidelines thought you was going to quit. They was like, yep, this it for them right here. Yeah, they thought they was going to be this powerful speaker. Now look at them going through it. Now look at what they're going through right now. You still are powerful. You still are great. So what I need you to do right now, I need you to be relentless and keep going. And that's all I got to say about it.
And you said a mouthful, man. You said a mouthful. And I think that, just piggyback off of something that you just said, I don't think often enough we don't look at what we've been through
Yeah.
because we're too busy focusing on what we're going through,
Yeah.
right? That we don't go back and just look back like, wait a minute, look what I made it through, right?
Yeah.
Look what I've been through. Look at the hardships that I've had in the past that have got me to this point that I'm still here in order to go through what I'm going through. But
Yeah.
if I take enough time to look back and count up the costs and count up the experiences that I've already made it through, then
Yeah.
I can look at this, what's in front of me, and be like, I've already been through 9 things. This is just gonna be number 10. And if I can get through 9, I can get through this one, and then that'll be 10 that I'd have got through. 10 things that I'd have made it through. But I don't think we oftentimes don't look back enough, right, at what we've overcame in order to appreciate the strength that we do have in the midst of what we're going through right now, to say, you know what, I had enough strength to make it through what I made it through. And what I made it through has made me even stronger. So now I have even more strength to face what I'm going through right now. And just like I overcame those things, I'll overcome what I'm going through right now and still be a victor over all of my circumstances. So
Yeah.
yeah, we just got to look back to look forward, right?
Man, and this is what I kept hearing in my spirit as you was talking. Preparation for destination.
Mm.
Everything that you've gone through or going through is preparation for your destination. whether you're going through right now your finances, whether you're going through right now in your business, whether you're going through right now in your marriage. Each one of those are preparation for you to be better with your finances, to help somebody else in your business, preparation to help your business to become better, to get everything in a line, because everything has to be in decency in order for God to bless it. So now you'll be able to teach somebody else. You'll be able to help somebody else behind you. Even in your marriage is going through right now, just so you could be a better husband, just so you could be a better wife. And in turn, you both can help some other marriages, some growing marriages, some marriages that may be on the rocks or maybe about to give up. It's all preparation for destination.
That's it. That's it. Getting prepared for that harvest.
Oh yeah, man, most definitely, bro. So I'm gonna let you have those last words, man. Just speak to the people, man. Point to the people, if you will.
All right, all right. First of all, let me say thank you for allowing me to be a part. Again, I felt like I was missing out. I seen all my people on there. I'm like, man, he had me on. So thank you for the opportunity to be on the podcast. For you guys, man, again, my name is Earnest James. My mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Because there is a purpose for everything that you go through. And you will find yourself sometime in the darkest spaces and feeling like there's no hope, feeling like there's no reason for me to be here. But God has a reason for you to be here. And there's a reason why you're going through what you're going through. So that when you get on the other side of it, when you become a victor over your circumstances, you can go back and help those who are still victims of those same circumstances. And that's what I truly believe. And so I look at all the things that I've been through in my life, all the things that I've overcame, all the problems that I've had and have been blessed to be a part of. Again, going back to something I said earlier, to be able to say, thank you, God, for trusting me with the pain. Right in the midst of it, no, it didn't feel good. In the midst of whatever you're going through, it won't feel good. In the midst of whatever you're dealing with, it may feel like it's impossible. But when you get to the other side and become the victor over all of those circumstances through the strength that you have and the strength that you've been given, then you'll be able to move forward. And so I want to just tell everybody, look, it doesn't matter what you're dealing with. It doesn't matter what you're going through. There's nothing new under the sun. And there's nothing new that the Son hasn't already paid for. There's nothing new that the Son hasn't already made arrangements for you to be a victor over those circumstances. And so I just want you to say, never give up. I want you to deal with your issues, whatever that you're dealing with, whatever things that you're holding on to. I want you to deal with it. Then I want you to heal from it. And once you have healed, and then that will give you the viewpoint of what your purpose is, and finding the purpose is going why you went through what you went through in order to be help to someone else, because there's definitely there's a purpose in all pain. So I say again, sometimes we have to change our viewpoints, change our mindset. Instead of saying woe is me or why is me, just simply say thank you, God, for allowing me to go through this, because whatever reason that you're sending me through it, I know you have a plan and I know you have purpose attached to it. And once I make it through it, then I'll be able to walk according to your purpose and your plan and be a blessing to someone else. So once again, thank you guys. Thank you for allowing me to be on. Thank you guys for listening. And again, I'm Earnest James, and my mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose.
Yo, so tell everybody where they can find you at on social media and your podcast.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So you can find my podcast actually on YouTube. We're on all of your on your podcast listening platforms. But I'm very proud to say we're on YouTube. We turned our page into a podcasting network now. So it's called the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube. And we have several podcasts that's there now, including the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, which is my original podcast. We have Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is a podcast that I talk to other girl dads like myself, talking about the relationships with dads and daughters in order to combat the narrative of the fatherless daughter and the absent father. And we also have some other podcasts that's there too. So make sure you go check us out and subscribe right, to the podcast network on YouTube. Again, that's the Deal to Heal podcasting network on YouTube. But you can find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram also. And just me as a person, as a speaker. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook as Earnest James. I think on Instagram I'm Earnest James Speaker, something like that. And yeah, that's in a nutshell. And visit my website, dealhealfulfill.org. So everything is going to be around the mission, right? To help people deal, heal, and fulfill. So dealhealfulfill.org is the website. You can find more about me and even hire me to come out, speak to your people, right? Or run a workshop or something. So yeah, that's where you can find me at.
No doubt, man. Y'all make sure y'all hit him up. Make sure you follow him on social media. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to his podcast. Do the whole 9. You know what I'm saying? But, bro, I just want to tell you, man, I appreciate you, man. This has been a powerful recording, man, a powerful conversation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, man.
Yes, sir.
And I thank God for the connection.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be a part of it, man. I love having these conversations. That's why I do podcasting, because I get to talk to
Oh, yeah.
these conversations, right? Again, like I said earlier, I'm an introvert. So in person, I'm kind of quiet. But when I get behind this mic, I get to talk. So
hey, trust me, I get it, man. I think it confuses people sometimes because
yeah.
I'm so quiet, but then I tell them I'm a speaker.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so to all of my listeners, to all of my watchers, you already know what the deal is. You know what the drill is. Whatever time of the day it is, whether it's morning, noon, or night, you already know. Make the best of each day. Leave no days left behind. And nevertheless, be relentless. I'm K. Noel, your relentless motivator, and we are out.
Hey, aren't you glad? I'm bringing it back. My chains in the past. Yeah. Got my confidence back. I ain't living in last. That ain't living like that. Hey, aren't you glad?